Happy Monday, everyone. Today is October 16th, 2017, and welcome to live stream number 77. Today, we're going to talk about forgot about sweeps and custom frets. I should probably explain that. So a while back, I talked about lofts here on the live stream. And we have used sweeps before, but we haven't really gotten into the dialog box. And I got a few people asking me some questions via email in regards to, some commands where sweep would be really useful. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I can see we already got a bunch of people coming in here. Absolutely love it. Thank you so much, guys. Happy Monday, everybody. Hope you had a great weekend. So let's jump into Fusion 360. So, I'm starting on a blank screen here. I really don't need my data panel open to do this. So, let's talk about the sweep command pretty quickly here. We're going to go in and I'm going to show you some pretty neat functions that is within that feature. So, it's sitting right down here, sweep. And the first thing, if you're brand spanking new to Fusion, is that it normally needs, it needs two sketches. It needs a profile, and then it needs a path to kind of project that profile down. So, you know what? I think we should do today's in metric. How about that? So let's go in here, settings, and switch this over to millimeters. Okay, so let's sketch something up here. I'm just going to sketch on my front plane here, and I'm going to hit C for circle, and I'm just going to sketch out a couple of circles here, and then D for dimension. And let's make this one 30. Let's make this one 40. So this is what I'm going to project out here, kind of like a pipe or a tube or something like that. So this is our first sketch. So like I said before, two sketches, profile, and then a path. So this is our profile. So let's do our path. I'm gonna stop the sketch, and so now we'll see if we look over here, we have one sketch. Let's fire up a new sketch. So create a new sketch, and I'm gonna do this one on the top plane. So the first one was on the front plane, right? Now it's on the top plane. So if I move it right there, we have the front plane. That's where we have the first one. Now we're sketching up on the top plane here, and I'm just gonna sketch some lines here. This is not really important. Sketch this out, something like this here, and you could choose if you wanted to just make it straight. I'm going to put a couple of radiuses on the lines here. Go back into my sketch and add some fillets. I don't know, just because I like it, I guess. Add some fillets like that, and stop that sketch. So we have two sketches. I didn't define that one. I should probably put some dimensions on it. So we got two sketches, profile, path. Okay, now let's go up and activate the sweep command here. And you should know that there's two options. There is single path, and then there is path plus guide rails. Now, if this is brand new to you, go back in and search the live stream where we're talking about guide rails with the lofts. That will give you a lot more information about what they kind of can do. We're going to do single path first here. And first is asking us selecting our profile. What's going to be this kind of like the pipe outline. Then it's looking for the path, and we're going to select this edge here. And then we get kind of like a pipe here, right? So sweeps are really good at this type of work here, with kind of like a pipe working through it, or it's also many times what it's used for, like wires, if you are, doing like electrical wiring or tubes or something like that. So not just, but I mean, sweeps would normally be the one you would use for something like this here. But you can do other things. The sweep command is actually pretty neat because it has some pretty neat functions in it. So let's go back in and do another sweep on a sweep. You can do that. So I'm going to go in here just to demonstrate this. I'm going to go up and do an offset plane from this first face that we created. So I'm actually going to create a sketch on a plane that is kind of a little bit further in here. So I'm going to right click and create a sketch on that. So now I'm kind of like looking normal too. And just because I like to, I'm going to just create a construction line from the center out here. Hit the line, hit X, that becomes a construction line. Let's do a rectangle. I'm just going to kind of like create a cutout in our tube here, or a pipe. So I'm going to do some relationships. I'm going to do symmetry. I love symmetry between one point, another point, and then that construction line. That was why I created it. Now we know that this will stay symmetrical over that line. And then D for dimension, and we can add a couple of dimensions. Let's make it 10 by 10. And then we need the dimensions from here to here. I don't know, I'm just rounding up here, 18. This is not really important. But what I want to show you is, so I just created this sketch here, what is going to be my profile. Now, if you have used other CAD systems, some of these older times CAD systems like Inventor and, well, actually I don't know much about Inventor, but with SolidWorks, that used to be a time where you had to have your profile and your path had to kind of like intersect or touching each other to be able to work. But in Fusion, we actually don't need to do that. See, I can actually go out here, my sketch for my profile, and if I go back and turn on that original path I created at first for the tube, I can actually reuse that one again, even though these two don't even intersect one another. So even though these are on relationship with each other, it will still use another path. So this path has been used in two instances now. First for the pipe itself, and now for this this cutout I just kind of like created through here. So that's definitely important that you know that you don't have to have the profiles kind of intersecting the path and the profile. They can really be two different places. Now, another thing that is interesting with this is if you're looking over here in the dialog box, you will see that there's two instances over here called distance, and they're both set to 1. Now, this value is kind of, 1 is max. Anything smaller between 1 and 0 is a distance. So the reason I created that plane in was to show you this. If I grab this arrow, I can actually move that cut back to where it started, or I can move out. So you will see that 1, it's out, but if I move it back a little bit, look how the value have changed. I can do the same thing on the other end. I can grab and drag this in, and it corrugates with this value, and this value goes back to that line segment. If I move it back here, you will see that moves all the way. So 0 over here will be all the way back. So I can literally control how long I want that cut to be. What can actually be, that's kind of cool. So be aware of, it's kind of like a percentage, I guess, is probably what it actually calculates it out of. So you can do that. So that's kind of cool to know. Another thing that's in here is a taper angle that you can apply. Now let me just hit OK so you can see this cut. So what we have now is kind of like what we ended up getting is a cut inside of the side of the tube on one side. Hope that makes sense. I don't know what you would need that for, but demonstration purpose. Now let me go back into it again. Right click and edit the feature. There's also a taper angle in here. So if I put like 1/2 degree, look how it tapers a 1/2 degree from, just like we had that in the loft 2, I believe. So now it's a 1/2 degree on all 4 sides of that rectangle. It goes out, so we can actually add. You would actually see if I hit OK that it would actually cut an opening in this area over here, because it kind of like it goes all 4 sides out a 1/2 degree. It's not just the direction of the path. So that's important that you know that. Then you will also see that there is a twist angle in here, which is kind of interesting. So let me go 150 degrees, and look what happens. The thing is kind of twisting. It doesn't really know what it's going to do with this distance down here, I think. Let's bring that distance back out to maybe full out. You will see that it starts twisting it around the profile. You can actually go pretty high up here. You will see how it kind of like starts twisting. It looks weird, right? The biggest problem, and it actually cuts it. The biggest problem you will see with the sweep command you can run into. So here I have no issues, but many times is the profile cannot cut itself. So I mean, I don't know how crazy we can get with this cut before. Well, it looks like 1500 angle, and it will just keep on wrapping and wrapping and wrapping. You can get some really interesting cuts. So do be aware of this twist angle. You can make some pretty neat patterns, I think, with that. Another thing you should know about is the perpendicular versus parallel. Now, the easiest way to show this is probably not to use a pipe. Let me roll all the way back to the beginning, literally to our first sketch. Let me make it active. Remember this sketch? If I go in and I create a new sketch, so now we have kind of like down here in the bottom. If I create a spline instead, so before when I created the pipe, I just used some lines and arcs. What is great for pipes, but if you're doing something like wires or something, you maybe want to use a spline, because as you maybe remember, that with splines we get these handles where we can go really, we can make some really neat shapes, and we can use these splines also as paths for our guide curves. So let's go ahead and create a new sweep in here, and select our profile again, and then this time I'm going to select that spline as our path. Now it's almost like more like a tube. Now the difference, and again you will see in here I also get a distance, so it means I can just grab here and make it shorter, what is kind of cool. The perpendicular versus parallel. So perpendicular means that it's going to be perpendicular to kind of like the path that we are following. Now parallel switches it. You will actually see how it switches it over here. Let me look at the end here. Let me go back to perpendicular and go to parallel. So parallel is actually staying parallel to the original sketch profile. So check this out. It says I'm dragging it back. Right when I go over the second, or the point up here, you will actually see that it kind of like it switches sides to stay parallel to the original sketch. So that is important to know, that you can control that in here. Okay, let's get out of that again. Let's get rid of that sketch, and then if I roll forward again, we're kind of back to our pipe there. So one of the things I wanted to talk, so this is kind of like the sweep, the basis of the sweep. If you've never really played around with it before, and that is, path, profile, right? Or profile path, and it kind of like follows that path. I used it quite a bit for tubing, for different projects where, creating that sketch for the profile to kind of like follow will give you a nice tube wire or something like that. But another thing that many times comes out of this discussion is threads, especially customized threads on a part. So in Fusion, we have this cool thread function. So if I click on the thread function here and I select a face to put that thread on, you can choose to have it modeled or not modeled. And you can choose full length on that face, or you could choose to make it shorter. And depending on the diameter that you got, it will actually try to fit a size to this. And we actually did a live stream on this a while back where we confirmed, and search for that one, we confirmed that these threads are definitely right on and good threads. compared to the Machinist Handbook. So the threads inside of Fusion, they're right on. But one of the things that happens is, and I think this kind of like comes out of the 70s, 80s. It looks like that every company decided that they were going to make their own standard. Like that was like the biggest hype in I think the 70s and 80s. Companies, like if you ever worked in making gears, you know that every company created like their own little variation of a standard and called it, like I used to do a lot of work for Kodak, and they were definitely Xerox. They were definitely notorious for this. So you will see over here, if we're going to look at the thread, that there is all kinds of cool threads in here that you can use. But what happens if you want to create your own kind of thread in here? And that's maybe where you're looking for some tools to do that. So I'll show you one way to do this. Let me get rid of this this thread here. The one trick is to use the tool called coil here. You can utilize that, and we haven't looked at this before. We probably should do some other live streams on this, but just to show you, because again, you might be looking at this video because you saw sweep to try to figure out how to do custom threads. So I'm going to select the coil, and it actually, if you look at my cursor, you will see this trying to do a diameter, and that's what it's really trying to do. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to sketch a diameter, and I'm just going to make it the same as my oval diameter. So that was 40 millimeters. And as soon as I hit OK, I get this dialog box, and it shows up with this coil, what is kind of cool looking. And if I hit OK, you will just see we get, well, it will turn it into a cut because where I started it. If we just join it, you will see we're getting kind of like a solid coil here, but that's not really what I'm after here. I'm gonna go back in to the cut for a second, and let me just drag it on the side we actually want it. What will be on this side over here. Now, a couple of things I want to point out. Let's start up at the top. You can choose over here to do, and I would think you want to do like revolution and pits. That is definitely what I have normally used. So you can put some kind of a pitch in here, and this is depending on our diameter in the section. So let me just change that to something else. Maybe. There we go. So it is revolution and pitch. So the diameter was what we used. You can switch between rotation direction, by the way. Then how many revolutions do you want? You know, that is up to you. The pitch in here. So this is where you can set up your pitch. You can also control an angle in here. Then you get this section here where you can choose between some different types. So right now it says a circular. If I change that to triangular internal, you will actually see that we get something that starts looking more like what I would call a gear or something. Let me try to make can I make the pitch a little bit smaller? Maybe, so do minus. Okay, so you will start seeing that we're getting something that could resemble some kind of a custom thread. Now I'm just gonna hit, I'm not gonna hit OK to this. What I'm gonna do in here is I'm gonna do it as a new body, and I'll show you just in a second while I'm doing this. So I'm gonna create it as a new body, which means that now over my folder I kind of like have, I should have, or when I hit OK, I'm gonna have two bodies. So one was our pipe, and the other one is this spiral here. Now, I'm sure that your custom thread is not going to have just a triangle on it. That's going to be something, but we are pretty close, right? So here's a cool trick. If I open up a sketch on this triangle face, so you set your pitch and your length and your revolution, all that you want within the coil here. So fill out whatever you can in here, the pitch, in here, triangular, the revolution, if you pick revolution and pitch, and save it out as a new body. So you got this here. Then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open a new sketch on this face here. Okay. And then there's a super neat tool over on the sketch under project that says include 3D geometry. So what I can actually do now is I can project like this, the helix of the inside, and you might also, that depends on what you might want to use one of the other helix as a guide rail. Again, if this whole thing with guide rails is new for you, look at the older live streams where we talk about it. But what do I have now? Well, if I hide that body here, right now I have these two spirals here to finish up my own kind of profile, thread profile. What is what you normally want? So I can go in now and create, that thread, whatever that custom thread kind of like should kind of be, whatever fits in here. So let's go in here and just create this here as a construction geometry. Then I could go in here and say I want the midpoint of this line to be here. I want maybe these two to be equal lengths. So now I'm kind of creating my own profile here, right? I can start adding some dimensions to all of this, whatever we kind of want. Whoops, not that. That was not what we want. That was kind of funny. It flipped it. So let's do this one to this one to this one. We'll flip it now. Huh. That's interesting. Ooh. Why is it doing that? Okay. I'm not sure why it does that. All right. Well, you can define your own kind of profile. That's kind of funny. So now I'm over constrained, it looks like. Okay. Stop playing with it, Lars. So we now have created like our own profile. So depending on what your thread should be here. And if I now go back into the original body we have in here, we can now go back in and do the sweep, where we can go in and select the custom profile we just drew up, and we can select the path here to kind of get that custom profile cut thread in there. Of course, this is not really great, but I think you get hopefully you get the gist of this. So you can go in here and kind of create your own teeth profile. You can wrap it around, and of course, again, like I said before, you can also use the guide rail if you need to pull it to a certain. I don't know if this is going to solve, but then you can pull with the guide rail out there. Now, I will say again that if you are working normally, the standard threads inside of Fusion that we have covered before on the live stream, they are definitely totally legit to use. We confirm that by measuring them, inspecting them, that they are right in the tolerance. So it's really only whenever you gotta create custom kind of threads that you have to go in here, maybe use some of these tools. I hope this was useful, folks. That was what, as a big truck is driving by, that was what I had planned on showing today. The rest of the week is planned. If you didn't get the notification, if you subscribe to the channel and you hit the little bell, then you should get an email notification when I create these events. Tomorrow, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern, we are going to talk about sculpting and modeling. So what happens when you model something up in the standard model environment, like we were just in here, and you want to use sculpting also and kind of like attach those two. Wednesday, I can't tell you yet what that is. Thursday, we're going to talk about how to split a plastic injection mold, the parting line. That was another question I got. I did do a mold video a while back. If you go back and you look in the videos, I think it was 4 or 5 series. But we're going to talk a little bit about how you can do that more complex part. And then Friday, we're going to talk CAM. We're going to talk about pick up your part. We're going to talk about G54, G55, and all that stuff. So it's a good week. There should be a lot of interesting stuff in there. I hope you find this helpful. That is really what these live streams are about to be. They're all about just adding a little bit more value to your use of Fusion 360. One other thing I got to say. Autodesk University is coming in mid of next month. November 14th through the 16th. It's in Las Vegas. If you've never heard about it, you should definitely check out. Just search Google Autodesk University 2017 if you're interested in going. I will be there. And if you are going to be there and you want to meet up, shoot me an email. My email address is down in the description area. And maybe we can do breakfast or something like that one morning or figure something out. So, 108 people in the live stream. Absolutely awesome. If you're watching this recording, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I hope you're ready for an awesome week. I'm going to do what I normally do. I'm going to end the broadcast. So if you're watching the recording, thank you. Don't forget to subscribe. Thumbs up, thumbs down. And I'm going to jump into the live stream and say hi to everybody. So, happy Monday, everyone.